Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Elixir Poetry Podcast. A podcast where we ask ordinary people from around the world to read a poem that means something to them, and we ask them why and how it speaks to their heart. Hello and welcome to today's Elixir Poetry Podcast. Today we're really lucky to have Meron Berhanu talking to us about her own poetry. Hello, Meron.
Hi, Helen. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's only a privilege. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Meron, and as a London-based poet with Ethiopian heritage, my work explores the history of oral storytelling, generational trauma, memory, and migration, to name a few. I've been published in a handful of magazines and anthologies, but I'm currently working on my first collection of poetry whilst traveling. And some of my poems, as you'll hear today, incorporate Amharic words, playing with that sort of rich consonant inventory of one of the main languages spoken in Ethiopia. And in this mix of English and Amharic, I really like to play with the idea of conversations across time, and building relationships with those who are no longer here, sort of asking questions no one alive can answer, and even if they are, what if you don't speak the same language? So that idea of foreigner and family sitting within the same image has always been really interesting to me, perhaps because it's very similar to how I feel in different contexts, probably because as a first generation British citizen, I'm one of the few people in my entire lineage to be born in a different country. And I know this is quite a common experience for children of the diaspora. But yeah, by using the stories within my family and my community as inspiration, I want to invite the reader to see their own ancestors and start building relationships with them too.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, I gather you're going to read us 3 poems. I wonder if you could read us the first one. What's the first one called?
Yes, of course. So the first one is called Ophelia. So yeah, I'll go for it. Ophelia. I see her before me. Hair unlike mine, braided, twisted, permanent, like the crow flowers hanging loosely in her hands. There will be no struggle, just a woman floating, waiting to drown. But her eyes, looking up, are mine. The frame only goes as far as the trees and moss, but not the sky. Tell me, what sky did you see before you closed your eyes? Did the fair sun shine? Was the sky full of shadows? The closer I look, tell me, why does it look like the sky you see is me? And why are you painted with all the colors in the world, but girls like you, girls like me, find themselves in the wet, dark drag of muddy brooks? I look around and crawl into the frame, into your river, floating between waterline and air, and I dream. Yes, I've always liked that dream of angels who kiss my head and sing to me sleepily.
Wow. Wow. I really love the idea that the person watching is the sky
Mm.
that Ophelia sees. And it's very moving, the idea that all girls can be Ophelia, actually can feel dragged down into the mud. What made you write that poem? Was it just seeing the painting? The Rossetti painting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that. I think I saw it at the Tate Britain when I was around 15. I think by John Everett Milius, and I was just so stunned. And I think it just really reminded me of that sort of feeling of looking at pictures of my ancestors and wanting to kind of crawl into that frame and experience what life would have been like for them. And I think yeah, I mean, I come from a family where oral storytelling is kind of our bread and butter. And I always find it such a shame that we can't experience those stories in the flesh as well. And I think a lot of my poetry is kind of different ways of reckoning and having conversations with people who aren't alive anymore. And
But also, there's something sinister, isn't there, about a painting that romanticizes the death of a young woman and that romanticizes and somehow sexualizes that death. Um,
yeah,
it's 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 both incredibly beautiful and really disturbing, at least I think for women. I don't know
mm,
how men view that painting, you know? Um,
yeah, I know. And I think for me, at least when I first saw it, I really was so stunned by the beauty of it because it's such a tragic scene.
mhm.
Um, and I think it was really hard for me um, to reckon with that. But I think ultimately, for me, what that manifested into was it kind of sort of became a perfect metaphor for that sort of feeling when you're hearing stories about your family and your ancestors that are, that can be full of tragedy or it can be full of beauty and, healing, but injustice. And I think that kind of summed it up in the painting. It was both beautiful and tragic at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of at least a summary of how I kind of view my um, past as well.
Mhm. Yes. That's amazing. So when did you write that poem? Was it a long time ago?
Yes, I think I wrote that around my third year of university, which is 5 years ago now. And I think it was one of those poems that I almost always say I only write one really good poem a year.
I
And
think
that was
everybody
that
feels
poem
like that,
this
don't
year.
they? It's great though. I think you're really proud of that poem. And for our listeners, we will be putting the Millet painting also next to, or just before, or just after Meron's poem, so that you can see what she's talking about. If you, in case you don't know that painting, that's amazing. Okay, which is your
Yeah.
next poem?
Yeah, my next poem is Alien.
Okay, Alien.
Alien. Green backpack, loaded with her life. A tiny woman standing underneath a building, so colossal in its whiteness, it must have a heartbeat. The gravity of the red, white, and blue weigh down her footsteps, pull her into its orbit. Her motherland is not a place anymore. It is something she carries, a wound she tends to every night. But right now, she is here, in this country, in this embassy, in front of a man behind a screen, and says, I'm ready to live, in which she means, I want to prove that I can.
That's incredibly beautiful again, and it's really loaded with inferences about. Is this your mother you're writing about?
Yes.
About your mother's
Yeah.
past and the journey she's been on.
Mm,
I love the detail of the green backpack loaded with her life.
mm,
And the
thank you.
building so colossal in its whiteness. I mean, we all know what that's referring to. And
Mm,
the desperation in it must have a heartbeat. Um, and I really
mm,
like the fact that um, you refer to Ethiopia as a motherland, well,
mm,
fatherland.
yeah.
Do you feel that your heritage is female, if you like, is between mothers and daughters? Is that
Mm,
how you experience that belonging?
yeah. Definitely. I think it's funny, my dissertation was actually all about mothers and daughters, but also that it being the perfect metaphor for our relationship to our motherlands and
Mhm.
everyone's relationship to where they come from. And I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of sort of geographical wonders always referred to as female, and even Mother Nature itself, it's sort of all
Mhm.
female. And I think that that nurturing aspect of uh, belonging to a place and then having to leave it can be as crushing as losing a parent. And especially when, you know, like most cases in for immigrants, like not many of them actually want to leave their home. And, you know, it's not like going on holiday or going for a new job. In fact, that rarely is that ever the case that that's lined up for them. And it's sort of this sort of leap of faith, and at the same time, this it's devastating as well. But yeah.
Do you also write about mother tongues? Do you also write
Mm,
language?
hmm Yeah, it's funny. The next poem is also kind of about that, about how it's how to almost marry both languages. And as someone who only has passive fluency, sorry, of Amharinia, which is the language spoken in Ethiopia and in my home, it's funny feeling that you can completely understand a language when it's spoken to you, but speaking it back is always broken.
Mhm.
And I think again that's kind of sums up at least my experience, but I think a lot of people's experience of being uh, first generation British citizen, of having, you know, a culture that you're so close to and feel like it's yours, but at the same time you can't necessarily participate it like a
Yeah, even though it
um,
must have been your mother tongue, your mother must have talked to you in her language
yeah.
when you were tiny, and it's there
Mm,
somewhere, isn't it? Planted in you.
yeah, exactly. I always say it's not my mother tongue, but it's how my mother speaks to me. And I think that is also a beautiful thing, even if you don't know how to reflect it back.
Mhm.
It's yeah, a language that my family have been speaking for centuries, and I'm only, you know, one of the first people that don't know how to speak. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of a sad irony, but also a duty to kind of always be a bridge for both cultures at the same time.
This is also a role that women have had often, you know,
Mm,
um, making that linguistic bridge between cultures.
mm,
They've been the ones sustaining the language from the old country, and they've been the one making the next generation fluent in the language of the new country. Uh,
mm,
recently, I was talking to someone about the Armenian population in Lebanon, who have,
mm-hmm,
even though it's 100 years since they were thrown out of their own country, they still teach all of the children how to read and write and speak in Armenian, as well as living in an Arabic, French, and English speaking country. And that
mm,
gained entirely by the women, by the mothers and the grandmothers,
yeah,
and the aunts, and so on, and
mm-hmm,
also through the religion as well. But
mm-hmm,
it's like a very nurturing task, actually,
mm-hmm,
you know.
yeah,
Whereas when you
yeah,
think of, I don't know how you think of fatherlands. When I think of fatherlands, I immediately conjure up pictures of lands that kill their sons. You know, I have pictures of
mm,
young soldiers, um,
mm,
rather than of nurturing, beautiful
mm,
nature, countryside, and so on that you have. I don't know whether that's just a stereotype, but I can really see that pull to identify yourself in a sort of matrilinear way.
yeah.
So, what's your next poem?
Yeah, so the next poem is called With My Cat.
Okay, so this is using some language from Ethiopia.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, with my cat and my ta, I whisper some before I sleep to see if my mouth still remembers how to enter. Like case and tanantana, a and tanana came. I fall asleep but my lips do not, beating restlessly through the night. Curse and thus, thus.
Oh, that's incredible. That, that's incredible. That's beautiful, and it really cuts a punch, you know. And
Hmm, thank
what I
you.
love about everything that I've read of yours is shot through with loss, but it's not bitter. It's just concern to
Mm,
retain and to protect and keep.
mm,
It's not
mm,
it's not an angry preservation.
mm,
It's an expansive. It comes from an expansive place where you want to
mm,
contain all of your history. Whether they
yeah,
are real or imaginary or lost or found. So you're traveling now, right? So are you finding that a really fruitful source for your poems? Are you getting
yeah.
materials?
I'm Yeah, it's pretty funny. I think I'm definitely writing about different things. I think mainly because I'm not at home, so I think it definitely feels like a different sort of flavor profile for me. 'Cause it's mainly about writing about traveling, but at the same time, it's like I can't stop thinking about um home because this is, I guess, even the journey itself of um traveling, I'm thinking a lot about that kind of leap of faith element and how, even though this is such a privileged position of, wanting to quit your job and travel the world, that also required such a huge leap of faith. And then thinking of my family and coming to the UK, that it's kind of beyond measure, and it kind of boggles my mind still to um, so at least for me, I still had, a few things lined up, accommodation, work, volunteering, and to just quite literally, arrive in a country that feels so foreign and alien to you. And I think, yeah, that's always been interesting to me, how that the idea of alien became a way to describe immigrants in England, as early as the 14th century, and but how actually different parts of the world are so alien to enter in, and it's about the human sort of, I don't know, versatility to not only live there but make a home there, and create a community there, and build life there, when um sort of the image of immigrants are um ones that are usually offered humanity, and I think they're the ones, at least I've learned so much from, and I think I've tried to, with my work, to be sort of a mouthpiece to those stories, because I think a lot of people can learn from them in a way that's, not shying away from the loss, but also not completely, depriving them of their humanity and the vibrancy and the beauty of it all as well.
Mm, mm. And it's a very different thing being landing in a country where you have been effectively exiled from all you know, and you can't just go back, and you're not just passing through, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
settle and you have to work out how to put down roots. Which country are you in at the moment?
Right now I'm in Costa Rica.
You're now in Costa Rica. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very different thing, isn't it? That passing through a place,
Mm,
and how fascinating and how enlivening it is to be in a new place, surrounded by new experiences, new sensory experiences, and meeting
mm,
new people. The thing that I find so life affirming when I travel is how unalien people are towards you. People are
mhm,
if people are so accommodating and friendly and helpful and understanding of foreigners.
mm,
And I
mm,
wonder how long, whether that's always been the case, whether we've always had lots and lots of people traveling to lots of different countries, but I don't think so. I mean,
mm,
it's quite interesting. At the moment, I'm at a international literary program in Lisbon, and Lisbon
mm,
has had an explosion of tourists over the last 20 years, and there's a lot of anger and demonstrations to the local council saying we can't accommodate all of these tourists. And there are little posters up to the tourists, but they're not aggressive tourist posters or traveller posters saying go home or so on. It is there are these little posters up basically reminding tourists to take care and to look after the environment and
Mm,
reminding them that they're guests in a country, which
mm,
is very sweet, you know.
yeah.
Although as they say, it's very different being a tourist to being an immigrant, and you are treated very differently, presumably because you have economic power. I mean, I think that's the
Mm,
difference, right? You know, that absolute
yeah.
assumption that you have money.
Very true. I think coming from, because previously from here, we were in Fiji and then New Zealand, and it's one of the most fascinating things to me that stood out is the connection between the people and the land, and I think it's completely changed my view of, even yeah, when we say things like the the environment, I think it didn't hold that much strength to me until I visited those countries, and it's about respecting the land, and then the land takes care of you, and it's completely personified, and it has its own personality as well. When we've been hearing loads of stories from locals of you know like people finding gold one day in a cave, and then the next day when they try to take it all, it kind of suddenly disappears, and all this kind of mythical, um, legends, and it was just so interesting to me. I feel like we don't really have that much in the West.
I definitely think we've forgotten the idea that we belong to the land rather than the land belonging to us. I think we've forgotten
Mm,
that. Unless you're in incredibly rural areas in
yeah,
in Europe.
true.
Um, but it's really easy to forget that. And yet,
Mm,
when you manage to go to places that are incredibly rural, wherever it is in the world,
mm,
there's a feeling that comes over people, if you are in the middle of the steppe or in the middle of a huge landscape, I always feel
mm,
like all of the sort of human neuroses just drain away from you because suddenly things are in proportion. You're aware of how minuscule you
mm.
are in the landscape and how irrelevant you are. And it's very, very freeing. Did you find that you're just like you're just part of the scene? You're not the protagonist,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, definitely. You felt part of the whole instead of being the whole, being the center of your own universe.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, and I think it has a domino effect because I think that's why, at least, from a traveler's perspective, people were so kind and nurturing, not only to the land, but to each other and then to the tourists. And then,
Yeah.
it kind of snowballs in a great way. And yeah, I felt very infected by it and felt very connected to everyone there, which is, yeah, really great.
So, Meron, my next question is when are you going to be back in Britain so that you can do some readings and publish some more poetry? Have you any plans of coming back to London?
Yes, yeah. So we made a promise to my nephew that we'll be back before Christmas. So we are gonna stick to that promise.
Okay, so listeners, I look forward to hearing more on.
Mm,
Mind you, of course, you could all use some of that newfangled modern social media technology to promote any poems that you're writing now. So we'd be able
yeah,
to hear them, especially
yeah.
the last poem, which is so dependent on sound. It's lovely. The
Mm,
sonic experience of that poem is well, for someone who doesn't speak any, I don't speak any African languages, and
mhm.
it's so attractive and mysterious and eerie to hear. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Oh, thank
maybe do some
you.
more oral representations of your poems, I think, and
Thank
also
you. Yeah.
I mean that your other poems also have a wonderful flow. It's not just that you're reading them really well, they just flow. And that
Mm,
means that they're very nice to hear, you know,
mm,
and So maybe you should do some more of that. That'd be good.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've always said, you know, always felt that Amharic was just such a poetic language growing up, especially in expressions of love and anger. I think it's just everything feels so much more powerful in Amharic rather than English. And I always found it very ironic that as a poet myself that I can't necessarily engage with that language and as confident as I do in English.
Well, give it time. You
Yet,
might be able to one day. Have you read any other Ethiopian poets?
yes, actually, there was a course I did called Trans Reading Ethiopia through I think the poetry school, and then the course leader on that actually co-wrote a anthology series called Songs We Learn from Trees, which is an anthology of Ethiopian poetry. And yeah, I could not put that down once I got it. And it's so interesting to me because I think growing up hearing a lot of Amharic and Amharic music and poetry and art, it feels very different to what I understand as uh, sort of the Western canon in terms of anonymity. I think a lot of Ethiopian poets, at least what I get from it and what I almost aspire to be too, is to be so good that it doesn't really matter that you're the one writing it. It's kind of just a beautiful poem. And I think, yeah, I loved all the poets in that series, but again, it's so funny that I don't know many of their names.
Well,
I
that's
just
okay.
remember the
We will
feeling.
put a reference to songs we learn from trees
Yeah.
on our webpage so people can go and look at those poems. I think it sounds to me what you're talking about is that what you want to do is you want to mainline the daemon, the duende, the
Mm,
spirit of poetry that, that somehow, I mean, you're a vessel for something beyond yourself. And I certainly feel like that as a poet myself, that I wouldn't be able to write a
mm,
word if it wasn't, if the daemon wasn't doing it with me, you know.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's beautiful, especially when you're speaking, as you say, for people, for more than yourself, for a community or
Mm,
for a village or for a certain group of people. It's really lovely if you can feel those connections and they're flowing through you. It's really wonderful.
mm.
Meron, lovely to hear you talking about your poems. I wonder if you could read them all again for our,
Yeah.
for our listeners before we go.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a
Um,
privilege, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your book come out.
oh, thank you. Yes, I'll definitely let you know. Okay, I'll start with Ophelia again. Ophelia. I see her before me, hair unlike mine, braided, twisted, permanent, like the crow flowers hanging loosely in her hands. There will be no struggle, just a woman floating, waiting to drown. But her eyes, looking up, are mine. The frame only goes as far as the trees and moss, but not the sky. Tell me, what sky did you see before you closed your eyes? Did the fair sun shine? Was the sky full of shadows? The closer I look, tell me, why does it look like the sky you see is me? And why are you painted with all the colors in the world? But girls like you, girls like me, find themselves in the wet, dark drag of muddy brooks. I look around and crawl into the frame, into your river, floating between waterline and air, and I dream. Yes, I've always liked that dream of angels who kiss my head and sing to me sleepily.
I really like that, and I really like the sublime, hopeful ending, even in such a tragic
Mm,
situation. Beautiful.
mm,
Thank you.
thank you. Alien. Green backpack loaded with her life. A tiny woman standing underneath a building, so colossal in its whiteness, it must have a heartbeat. The gravity of the red, white, and blue weigh down her footsteps, pulls her into its orbit. Her motherland is not a place anymore. It is something she carries, a wound she tends to every night. But right now, she is here, in this country, in this embassy, in front of a man behind a screen, and says, I'm ready to live, in which she means, I want to prove that I can.
There are so many layers in that poem, Meron. So many meanings you can attach to each line. That's what I like.
Mm,
It's so compact and it's so multi-layered.
thank
And
you. It's
yet it
funny.
has that illusion of simplicity, and that's what you're looking for in a poem, isn't it? That ability to be
Mm,
really clear and pristine, whilst also just
mm,
waking up lots of references in people's minds and building a picture. It's great.
mm,
Really, really
mm.
nice.
Thank you. It's funny. This poem is actually always kind of under reconstruction for me, but I always love reading it and hearing feedback because, yeah, I think it's not necessarily done yet, but I don't think all poetry has to be for it to be shared. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with my ka and my ta, I whisper some before I sleep to see if my mouth still remembers how to ka and ta, like case and tanantana, k and tananakain. I fall asleep, but my lips do not, beating restlessly through the night. Cuss and tuss tuss.
That's amazing. So what does case and talantina mean? What do these words mean?
Yeah, so case means priest, tanantana means yesterday, K means red, and tananakain is choking, sort of. And I thought this was a great sort of combination of words in terms of sort of the pillars of Ethiopian culture, like faith, memory, and the red sort of being bloodshed and war that's been experienced through the people and the land as well. And then Tanan again, I thought was interesting because it kind of feels like at least my experience of kind of being both choked by emotion and also choked by the weight of it all. But and also kind of the paralysis of not being able to fully engage in your own culture and how that kind of is almost um, sort of a past tense already. And I think the loss of that, as well as I think the mixture of that and the kind of resilience at the end of I'm not going to stop even if this is different now, and even if it's not something that I can fully immerse myself in yet. It's kind of marrying both of it in the same poem.
That's incredible. So you must footnote the meanings of those words at the end of your poem, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I do need to include that.
Unless you want to keep it hidden, but you explaining that just makes that poem explode. I mean, it's
Mm,
incredible and it's completely central to it. And you've put it in these little brackets, and
mm,
it's like the kernel of your identity. It's amazing.
mhm,
So do consider letting people know what it means. Don't
mm.
become Harry, yeah?
Yes, that's
Brilliant.
true. Yeah, definitely.
So, Moran, I could talk to you for hours, but I can't because our recording is going to end in a moment. I would like to thank you so much for coming to share your poetry with us.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Helen, for this opportunity. It's been a while since I've read my poetry and spoken about it, and it's just really nice to do that again.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing. I'm having the most incredible time at the moment at this Disquiet international literary program
mm,
because I'm
yeah.
surrounded by poets. Like there were 24 poets
Mm.
here amongst the 100 writers,
Oh,
and
nice.
and it's just so nice to be in an environment where you don't have to make an excuse for your writing. Everybody's writing, and
Yeah.
everybody's really enthusiastic, and everybody's really, really hardworking. It's
Yeah.
it's so refreshing and it's so
Mm.
scary out there. It's amazing. So I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying it. So I will.
Oh.
I completely get it. You know, you just have to sometimes just get with people who are in your zone, right?
Yes, it's true. And I think I definitely missed the privilege of that at university, like doing a creative writing degree. I think I didn't really realize the privilege of having that for 3 years and now only fitting writing around
Yeah.
my life, whereas before it was my life.
If you're a regular listener and are enjoying the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could hit the follow button on your podcast app. And if you have a moment, leave a review and a 5-star rating. Remember, you can find the poems that feature in each episode on my website, helenwing.com. If you'd like to support the production costs of our Elixir Poetry podcast, please feel free to buy me a coffee. Thanks for listening.